Hey everybody, welcome back to another exciting edition of the Shoe and Show. This is one of our different Shoe and Shows because this is a Shoe and Show Footwear Leadership Series and it's powered by OrthoLite. Before we get to our guests, we want to talk about, in this special series, how we sit down with top executives from the biggest footwear brands to explore their journeys, leadership philosophy, the decisions they make, the culture that they're shaping within their organizations. From career-defining moments to industry insights, these conversations offer a behind-the-scenes look as to what's happening within some of our member companies within the footwear industry. A big thank you to OrthoLite for making this series possible. As a trusted partner to over 550 leading footwear companies, OrthoLite continues to elevate comfort and performance across the industry. So Sandy, as we welcome our guests to this conversation and this continued series on leadership, who is joining us today on Shoe and Show?
Yeah, we're thrilled to have Tara McRae, president of Puma in North America, to our podcast today, Shoe and Show. Welcome, Tara. We're really thrilled that you're joining us today.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. Nice to see you both.
Nice to see you. I've known you for quite a long time.
Yep.
We go way back, but tell everybody who is listening in a little bit about your shoe story, how you came into the footwear market.
Yeah, absolutely. You're aging me, Sandy, by saying we've known each other for so many years. Yeah, I've been in the industry for quite some time. I actually started out my career in my very, very early 20s, agency landscape and marketing, lived in Los Angeles. Then I did 6 years in consumer electronics at Bose. And then I was lucky enough to land a job at a young age over at Puma, I started my shoe journey running the national media planning and buying for Puma North America many, many, many years ago. And I spent a decade at Puma and I grew in various different roles. And I always talk about my career really accelerated in my first stint over at Puma. So I did 10 years. I loved the brand growing up. I grew up as, I call myself a suburban sneakerhead, grew up as an athlete and just really obsession with sneakers and sports and fashion. So I was so lucky enough to do that. And then I went on and I did an amazing stint over at Clark's on the other side of the footwear market, what people like to call the brown shoe side, which was, it was amazing as well. And I grew over there and got to do a lot of different stuff, including running businesses and business units and grew to be their chief marketing and digital officer, which was very exciting over there. I did a stint with this gentleman called Tom Brady, and Alex Guerrero had a health and wellness brand, TB12, which was pretty awesome. And now I'm back at Puma. I've been back since last fall. And some days it felt like I never left, even though it was an almost 9-year gap. But I couldn't be more thrilled to be back here and in this role. I couldn't even have dreamed of this at a young age. Obsessed with this industry. And I feel so lucky every single day to be able to be a part of this industry. Even though it's a rocky time right now, rockiest time I've ever dealt with, I will say in my career, even more so than the pandemic, but I couldn't be more excited and honored and lucky to be in this industry.
We hear that all the time, Tara, that it's worse than the pandemic. That's telling, right, of
Totally.
kind of the environment we find ourselves in.
Yeah.
But for you, coming back to Puma, it's this homecoming for you. And as you've ascended to run the entire North American operation, which I have to assume is one of the largest markets for the global Puma,
Yep.
right?
It is.
Talk to me about managing a culture here stateside in North America in conjunction with maybe a different culture corporately in Germany, right? Walk us through, there's other brands like this, but talk to us about kind of navigating those two differences.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't really know any other way because when I was here first, it's the same thing with the headquarters in Germany and being a big market, satellite market, and then over at Clark's with the headquarters in England. So, a highly matrix global organization is what I know and it's what I love. I will say I have amazing colleagues in Germany, especially different, partnerships, whether it be in product or marketing, and that do understand the US market. So, that's what it takes is to have great colleagues there. But what I will say is what we're going through here in the States is very unique compared to, some of my colleagues around the world. So it is, constant, education on what's happening here in the US and how unique it is. But I have amazing global colleagues and support from the team over in Germany that does make that part of it easier. But I love it. I love that aspect of the complexity of the different markets from all around the world.
That's great. And I know that you've grown up in this industry, right? And you've learned a lot in terms of becoming a leader and also you're giving back as a mentor.
Yeah.
And being that this is part of our leadership series, I'm curious if you have one lesson that you learned as a leader that you wish you knew earlier that you can share with some people that are on the up and up?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'm big on mentoring, and I have a couple mentors that I've had for many years that I tap into all the time. And I'm a mentor to people I was supposed to mentor for 6 months. I'm still mentoring, which is amazing because I feel like it's a two-way street on that. But I will say, in my younger years, what I didn't realize is, I mean, this industry is massive. We talk about what, 75, $80 billion, but it's small too, and everybody knows each other. And I didn't realize at a young age that I would be working with the same people at different companies and how small the industry is. So I would say to younger people starting out in this, network, 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 because you will absolutely need to tap into those relationships and want to tap into those relationships later in your career. As big as of an industry it is also a very, very small industry. And seek out, don't wait for formal mentorship programs. They're awesome. I'm a part of them. We have them here at Puma. They're fantastic. We had them over at Clark's, et cetera. But seek out mentors, and they don't have to be formal. Find the people that you can really trust to help you, give you guidance throughout your career. And everybody needs them. Like, I'm still tapping in, whether my mentors like it or not, I'm still tapping into them all the time, especially navigating this time period.
Yeah, no, mentors are super, super important. You're always learning, right? I think that humility, even as a leader, is so critically important that you don't have it all together. You don't have all the answers. You may have the vision and the drive and the authority that's been given to you by those who brought you in. But at the same time, you have to kind of cultivate that culture to allow for people to ask questions and seek advice and counsel. And so that's so critically important. Tara, one of the things I wanted to ask you is also, you've been outside the industry, right? You mentioned consumer electronics. You mentioned a stint with Mr. Tom Brady, which that's a whole different episode. I would love to schedule to talk about that. But talk to me about, are there things outside of the industry that you picked up where you said to yourself when you came into footwear and you got embedded here, and footwear is like a vortex. Once you get sucked in, it's very difficult to leave. And that's a great thing. I love the industry. But are there things that we have blinders on certain things that consumer electronics or maybe broader health and fitness don't have those blinders on per se?
Yeah, I don't know. I think for me, like my stint over at TB12, because it was such a smaller organization in startup mode, I took a lot more from that than I did from it being like health and wellness. So for example, when I got back to Clark's, my team was just like, "Oh my God, what is happening here?" Because I was in that startup mode where there's no red tape. You don't have to wait for 17 levels of approval. You have an idea, you can go into execution mode the next day. In footwear, our timelines are crazy. When you're thinking about, like, we're working on, seasons all the way through 27 right now. So I think, that part and I still take that today, is we're on these timelines and we're like, oh, well, that's not possible because that's 3 seasons away. But no, that consumer wants it right now. So the speed and not getting tied down to all of the red tape, that I think I took away definitely from my time at, a startup at TB12. Consumer electronics too, very different in the sense they have even longer timelines. So there were things that I was working on at Bose, like from concept to like 4 years of like building the plans, and you're only launching a couple products a year. We're launching a couple products a day in our industry. It's wild. But I think the methodology and the approach, and there's a lot of data and research that goes into consumer electronics, an insane amount. I think that piece I probably took from it. But I will say from a consumer standpoint, the consumer centricity, no matter whether being in health and wellness, consumer electronics, or footwear, the importance of consumer centricity is clear throughout all the industries. And that's one thing I'm really trying to get the team here laser focused on, is not just saying it and putting it in a PowerPoint and feeling good about it, but truly putting the consumer at the heart of everything that we do.
That's interesting. And I'd love to hear a little bit about the culture that you're fostering at Puma. How do you keep your team aligned on the values while navigating these, bumpy times, these rapid changes? Like, what is your mission on that front?
Yeah. The good thing is I'm not inheriting a bad culture. Like, it's such a great brand. It's fostered a great culture. One of the things I've always loved about Puma is the youthful entrepreneurial spirit that it has. Always. And so to me, the culture that's there wasn't a bad culture that I need to come in and change by any means. Right. I think where we are in this time period with what's happening in the economy and what we need to do as an organization to really drive that is pulling everybody together. And I'm a player coach type of leader. I'm not like, I'm going to build this and you go do it. Like, I'm going to roll up my sleeves with you, and everybody, has an equal seat around the table. Like, we half joke, and in my office, I took out the square table and put in a round table because I hate square table. Like, round table, I just like the aesthetic of it. But then there's no like head of the table, like everybody's around that table. So for me, that's the style and the culture that I want. I'm not a huge fan of hierarchy. It exists for a reason, and I get it. And of course, there's certain reasons that exists. But I believe any idea can come from anywhere. And if there's a subject matter, I want the person who knows the information on that subject, not because your title says you should be in that meeting. So I'm just really trying to get everybody to roll up their sleeves and have that, everybody to have that player coach type mentality. I'm lucky. I feel like in stepping into this role is a really, really hard role. I'm not going to lie, but stepping into it, I think because I had been here and I know so many people, that I have such great support of my teammates and my colleagues, that's made it a little bit easier for sure.
I love that symbolic round table versus the
Yeah.
square. My family of Five, we like to have dinner at a round table, but
Same.
you can see the faces, you can communicate,
Same.
you can fellowship and
Same.
collaborate. So I love that. And then it's symbolic that you made that change. And it speaks to your servant leadership, and that you're not above anything because you're there in the trenches to help get the job done well.
Yep.
That really speaks to me, Tara. Now, you mentioned it's a hard role. Are there 2 or 3 things top of mind right now? And we don't have to say the T word necessarily, but are there things that are making it more difficult? And maybe those difficulties are creating opportunities that you're realizing at this moment, or you see down the road will be opportunities for you?
Yeah. I mean, the dirty T word, the tariff word, that's a tough one. Just navigating these economic times for sure. But if even say we put that aside for a second, the changing landscape has really, really made it, I mean, to me, exciting, but challenging for brands like Puma, because there's so many new brands in the space. Like, the brands I talk about in the competitive set and what's out there right now are not the same brands that I spoke about last time I was here. Yes, of course, the big ones, but there's so many up and coming, which to me is really exciting. Also, too, just the difference in consumer consumption. The age groups are very different, very, very different in how they take in content, their purchasing habits, etc. So all of those challenges that we're navigating, and to move fast, like the smaller organizations and the smaller groups and shoe companies that are coming up, they can move much faster and more agile. So making sure that we can implement that agility into our organization. It's tough. The company got real big while I was away, but it's harder to move a bigger ship. So that's probably one of the internal struggles that I have outside of the dirty T word.
Right. All right.
That's fair. I'm curious a little bit about just taking, a beat off of the large organization.
Yeah.
How are you approaching like risk taking in your organization? And like, it's a rough time. So how do you foster like experimenting and risk for your team?
Yeah. My philosophy is calculated risks. And I think probably the brands I've been at too, whether it be Startup Mode or Clark's when we were going through some change over there as well, is we have to take risks. We have to. It's the only way you're going to get ahead is by taking those risks. But, they have to be, let them be informed and let them be educated, calculating risk, but we have to take them for sure. And what I learned through the pandemic, and maybe we're going through all this, we've gone through obviously the pandemic, which gives us an understanding of we will come on the other side of this. It'll look different. We will come on the other side of this. Is how can we use this time not as a negative, but as a positive to make the changes that we need to? So that when we come on and we're not talking about tariffs and we're not having tariff meetings every week, what changes can we make now that will help us on the other side of this? Just like from a pandemic, so many good things came out of the pandemic. If we really think about it, I mean, this alone, everything had to be done in person, and, there's things that we didn't think were possible, and we advanced so much technology during that time period. So I'm just trying to look at what are the positives we can do now that will come out of this situation that can benefit our brand and business.
I've got one more question for you. Then we're going to pivot to more fun kind of conversation.
Good.
Sandy's got a couple questions for you, but before we get to that, Tara, I want to ask you about talked about this notion that's been a part of your career this entire time, where you've worked with a U.S. brand that's owned overseas.
Yeah.
And the American markets, in spite of all the challenges, in spite of the fact you're having to educate your colleagues corporately inside the company based on what's happening in this market politically and economically, it is a powerhouse, right? The
Yeah.
American consumer loves footwear. You know, we bring in, 2.5 billion pairs of shoes every single year. That's 6 or 7 pairs of shoes for every single person in this country every single year. Puma is a big part of that. So the question comes down to you is, how much of it is the tail wagging the dog? How critically important is the role that you have relative to the broader company, just because you're at the helm of what I again assume is the largest market for the brand, if not
Yep.
one of the largest, the largest.
Correct. Yeah, correct. Yeah, absolutely. And I will say our chief commercial officer, he has been an amazing support in that sense. They understand the importance of the US market. Not only, yes, size of the prize, as you're talking about being the largest region and one of the largest regions for most of like our competitors too, and how big we are, but also the influence that it has on other markets as well. Yes, we do take influences. There's fashion influences we take from other markets. Like, if we're real, soccer comes from Europe, so I take the influences there. But there's a lot of stuff here that we do that influences other markets, so they understand the importance of that. And it's why we have, certain product engines that are born out of the US and are built here and are run here out of the US that service globally as well. So not every single business unit comes out of Germany, which is very similar to some of our direct competitors as well, because everybody understands the importance of the US market, especially in core categories.
Yeah. Well, if you think about it, what's coming up in the next few years, you got the World Cup, you have
Oh,
the
yeah.
Olympics.
Oh,
This
yeah.
is going to be the mecca of sport, global sports for the next 5 years. And Puma's a part of that, the fabric,
Huge.
global sport community. And so it's got to be super exciting to be at the helm as you head into those big events.
Oh, yeah. I tell the team here, when I was younger and here, and I worked on our soccer business for many years, I could only dream of a day that we'd have World Cup on the US soil while I was working at Puma. So to come back to the brand, and that was one of my first tasks, is to work on the team that's going to bring our World Cup activation to life, is very exciting. I mean, you start out at having NBA All-Star in LA is going to be crazy. Really excited about that. Then I know, like, obviously there's World Cup next year. Very excited in all of our major cities. There's a Super Bowl happening in LA. I've heard rumor on that one as well. And then Olympics. I mean, we're going to have a handful of years of really, really exciting for the sport industry coming out of the US. So yeah, we're very excited about that. And obviously is in our wheelhouse as a brand.
Yeah, I love it. I can't wait. Can't wait to be on the front row to see what you and your team do. I'm really excited about it. But now it's time for some footwear fun. Before we get to that, I want to again thank OrthoLite for sponsoring the Leadership Series and helping us to bring these great conversations to life. OrthoLite partners with over 550 of the world's leading footwear brands, elevating comfort and performance with every step. Learn more about their incredible work at ortholite.com. Sandy, we've got a couple of different fun questions we like to throw our guests in these segments. I turn it over to you. You pick your favorites and we'll go from there.
Okay, Tara, we call this the last shoe standing. If you could only wear one pair of shoes for the rest of your life, what would this pair be and why? We need a good justification for it.
Okay. I guess I'd have to go with my Puma suedes, because they are, I mean, it asked me my favorite pair of shoes, all that's different. But if I can only have to wear one pair of shoes, it would be the Puma suedes. It's classic. It's an icon. It has super clean lines. It can go with everything. You can dress it up. You can dress it down. So if I'm like thinking, okay, well, for my attire, it would have to be Puma suedes, which is different than my favorite shoe at the moment.
Well, you can tell us that too.
Speed Cat. Speed Cat's my favorite shoe at the moment. It was one of my first loves. Speed Cat and Mostro were two of my first loves in the Puma brand before I even worked here. And now, obviously, they've come back in, and they're some of the hottest shoes out there right now. But a classic of all time. If I'm stuck for the rest of my life, I'm definitely wearing a Puma suede.
Okay. All right. Let me ask you. You covered this a little bit earlier today, but we call this lace up and level up, a wisdom drop. We want to ask you, if you had one piece of advice to give someone, in terms of mentorship, what would this be for someone stepping into the footwear industry for the first time?
Yeah. Network. Events. And I mean, I try to go to every event that I can. because you learn so much and you network so much. I mean, Matt, I came right over to you. It was like, okay, I see Matt across the room at the Footwear News event. Yeah, of course. But like, that's what it's about. And you learn so much. And at the end of the day, the best thing about this industry too, we are fierce competitors. We're made up of a lot of ex-athletes. That's why we're the way we are and so aggressive. But you get us in a room like that, we're a team. Like I was at a Dick's Sporting Goods Sports Matters event last week, and every single footwear and sport brand was there. And we were all hanging out because you're all in it together. And you see us going through trying to oversee the tariff situation, the pandemic. Coming together is key. So my whole thing is to network. Yes, we talked about mentorship, but network within this industry is key. And I didn't realize that. I thought, I can't talk to when I was younger, I was like, I can't talk to that person. They're from Nike. I can't talk, they're from Adidas. Now it's like, we're all in the same industry trying to advance it. I believe if all of us are working, it's better for the industry.
Right.
So
I do believe that we're one big crazy family.
Yeah.
So, once you're in it, you really can't leave.
Yeah.
And then this is a personal question of mine. What has been like a pleasant or fun surprise for you in terms of a collaboration that you've helped launch, or a sport that you didn't see coming that you worked on with Puma or otherwise that has been just a pleasant surprise for you?
Yeah. I don't know that I would use the word pleasant and surprise in it, but I will say when I was here the first time, so Puma was in basketball, obviously many years ago, Walt Clyde Frazier, first endorsement, everything. But we were out of it for many years. And I was working in strategy before I left Puma the first time. And I was working on the business case of getting back into basketball. Should we not? Pulling all that together. I was off at Clark's while they decided to go into basketball, and entering into a new category of that size is like, that's a tough get. Coming back into the business and seeing how amazing it is and seeing what they've been able to do over the past handful of years, how exciting. And I'm personally like, it's one of my first loves is basketball and the Celtics. So coming back into that has been awesome. It's been so exciting. It is such a highly competitive, challenging category, but it's so exciting. And having, my passions of soccer and basketball, getting to have both of those here at Puma, there's nothing better.
That's amazing, especially the Celtics part. I'm a big fan.
Oh,
are
awesome.
you doing a collaboration with the Celtics?
Oh, I wish. I dream of it. I dream of a day, but some of my competitors have both the local and national sponsorship with that. But yeah, that is my first love. I bleed green for sure.
That's amazing. I'm a Wizards fan, so I'll just
Ooh.
my care to both. That's just kind of.
I'm sorry for you, Matt. I'm sorry.
Okay, it's all right. We're good. We're good. Well, Derek, I can't thank you enough for coming on the program and just being honest and open.
Yeah.
Affable. We're super excited you've gotten this gig and that you're at the helm. It's the perfect fit for you, as we just explored with your history within the industry. We wish you nothing but success, and we thank you for coming on and sharing your leadership insight with us.
Yeah, no, thank you. And thank you for all of your support always. We really need you guys, so we appreciate all that you do. So thank you both.
Yeah, my pleasure, folks. This has been another edition of the Shoe Leadership Series, vis-a-vis the Shoe and Show. We've been around 9 years, but this year we want to set up a totally different series as we unpack the leadership philosophies and principles of some major leaders within the industry. And so thank you for watching. You can go to shoeandshow.com or shoeleaders.com for all of our greatest episodes and go through the entire catalog. I want to thank OrthoLite again for their support. And until next time, Shoe and Show is out.